The Phaethon siblings have always struck me as rather peculiar. On the surface, they seem pretty normal, but as the story has progressed, they seem to hide plenty of secrets of their own. Their collection of unique abilities seem to be constantly growing, and in 1.4, something even weirder has happened. Accessing the HDD and interfacing with the Bangboo is one thing, but how in the world did they survive the end of 1.4? Was it some special unrevealed technology they have in their possession, or do they have some unexplained supernatural abilities? That's what I want to discuss in this video. The ending of the Zenless 1.4 story and Phaethon's really weird abilities. Before we do that though, if you want to see more Zenless Zone Zero content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Since I'm going to talk about the 1.4 story here, as you might expect, there are massive spoilers for the events taking part there. So if you haven't played it yet, I'd suggest doing that first and watching this video later unless you don't care about spoilers. Now before we get into the theories, let me just give you a quick recap of the current events to set the scene. Throughout most of Phaethon's story, Wise and Belle have been amassing information and allies in order to achieve a specific personal goal. In the past, they once belonged to the Helios Institute under the tutelage and care of their teacher and benefactor Carol Arna. For reasons yet to be revealed, on the day old Eridu fell, their teacher was abducted by an unknown group and was blamed for not only the fall of the old city, but also the creation of Holo Zero. During the raid on their institute, the Phaethon siblings witnessed armed personnel, monsters, and a giant white hand which was supposedly responsible for abducting their teacher. They managed to escape, but the institute was ultimately destroyed and their teacher was gone, leaving them with 1,000 different questions. Their mission since then has been to uncover the truth, clear their teacher's name, and save her from this unknown group. Fast forward to today, in 1.4, we learn and uncover a plot by a mysterious shadow organization, which I'll refer to as the Order. This particular faction has representatives in pretty high positions, such as Sarah, Perlman's previous assistant, and Inspector Bringer. I won't get too much into the details here as I'll be covering them in another video, but by the end of the 1.4 story, Bringer's deception was uncovered, and he willingly mutated into an ethereal in an attempt to take out the protagonists. It took the combined efforts of public security, Phaethon, Section 6 of Hand, and even the Sons of Caledon to take him down. During this fight, Bringer seemingly summons a giant white hand, referring to it as the Creator, and made numerous references to this creator. After the fight concludes, we see Bringer, now reduced to Danzo's right arm from Naruto, confronted by Phaethon. Phaethon reveals that the arm Bringer summoned during the fight looked eerily similar to the one they saw many years ago during the fall of Eridu and the raid on their home. As such, they surmise that whoever Bringer is associated with were likely the same people that attacked them and took their teacher away. Bringer hints at being aware of this, but chooses to detonate himself in a huge explosion, seemingly wanting to take out both Wise and Belle. This is where something rather unexpected happens. You see, despite the explosion being pretty massive, both Wise and Belle were left relatively unharmed. Their eyes glowed a familiar blue hue and the view of the scene flickers, almost like something was glitching out. This rather weird outcome is what I want to discuss because as far as we know, both Wise and Belle are pretty much normal humans. Sure, they have some technology and modifications such as ocular implants and all, but for the most part, they have been shown to be pretty normal, outside of perhaps having a rather below average resistance to ether. So if they are just ordinary people, how in the world did both Wise and Belle survive such a massive explosion? Well, this is where we get into the theories. Just keep in mind, these are just nonsensical ideas that will get increasingly more silly, so don't take them too seriously. Okay, so the first idea that I came up with is that they are likely physically modified in some way. We know that the Phaethon siblings have ocular implants that allow them to interface with EOS and the HDD, so perhaps they are modified in other ways. Maybe their teacher had provided them with some defense mechanism like a shield or a really durable exoskeleton or something. Since we don't know what exactly they were up to at Helios Academy, the sky's the limit here. They could have a shield generator with them, or maybe they could be clones or holograms, or clones controlled by robots controlled with special headsets the real Wise and Belle are wearing while running their shop. In addition, right after the explosion, we see both their eyes light up with a bluish hue, similar to when they connect to the HDD. So I suspect this has something to do with whatever modifications they obtained during their time at the Helios Institute, the same modifications that allow them to interface with the HDD. But let's take this idea a step further. What if both Wise and Belle aren't even physically there? What if they are actually projections or are etheric in nature? It's possible that their ocular implants were not the only modifications they had on their bodies and they were changed to become something else entirely. As I mentioned, there was a lot of screen flickering after the explosion and even their eyes seem to have glitched out. This might be an indication or clue that what we saw wasn't actually real, in the sense that both Wise and Belle are really just holograms or something. They could even be something like a mimetic entity if you're familiar with Honkai Star Rail, but instead made up of ether and projected onto physical space. Again, we don't know what really happened in the Helios Institute, but given their teacher's research area was related to the hollows and ether, it's certainly possible that Belle and Wise are just humans given etheric forms. This is why the explosion did basically nothing to them, as they aren't physically there and only high concentrations of ether can really affect them. But humans becoming ether-based life forms is pretty out there, right? Except when you start looking at the group Bringer belongs to. You know, the same group now suspected of abducting Carol Arna. When his true allegiances were revealed, Inspector Bringer was very much accepting of turning himself into an ethereal. The group he belongs to also seems to be fairly interested in becoming ethereals, having developed serums that turn individuals into them. So maybe that's why they abducted Carol in the first place. They too wish to become ether-based humans but can only get as far as becoming ethereals, while Carol has been able to achieve a perfect transition, in this case with Wise and Belle. But so far, these ideas have centered around the idea that the siblings have been modified or altered in some way, and maybe it isn't actually that. Perhaps this is actually the work of the HDD system itself. Now, despite the HDD being a central tool within Phaethon's proxy adventures, we don't really know how it actually works. After the explosion, as I mentioned, both Wise and Belle's eyes lit up much like how it would when they accessed the HDD. So perhaps the HDD was the thing responsible for their survival. Maybe it somehow took them to another location or channeled the blast elsewhere by opening an ether fissure. I mean, that's kind of how the siblings first got to Bringer's location in the first place, right? They literally just opened a portal there. So far, we've talked about it perhaps being some sort of physical modification or the HDD's built-in defense system, but now we reach the weirdest idea, the one to trump all the rest. We know that the Institute and their teacher was the creator of not only the HDD, but also the ocular implants they use and even the Bangboo EOS. So what if Belle and Wise aren't even humans? What if they're actually robots? What I mean by robots is that perhaps they could be really advanced or humanoid Bangboos. EOS was created by their teacher, and after the explosion, EOS was relatively unharmed, much like the siblings were. In addition, it would still fit with their weaker resistance to ether, given even machinery and equipment can be corrupted within hollows. So maybe the reason a physical explosion did nothing to them is because they are actually really durable Bangboos. While Bangboos might appear rather unassuming and even cutesy, they are really advanced robots and are able to exhibit a lot of human traits like intelligence, loyalty, and even emotions. The only thing that Bangboos do not have is free will, which is the only thing that sets them apart from humans. Plus, the founder of the Helios Institute, Professor RK, also happens to be a fellow Void Hunter alongside the literal creator of Bangboos, Sunbringer. So maybe Carol Arna took it a step further, creating artificial humans using the same technology as a Bangboo. I mean, both Wise and Belle have no actual past to speak of. We don't even know if they have parents. So who's to say they aren't created by Helios Institute itself? So I have this weird gnawing idea at the back of my mind that makes me think both Wise and Belle are actually Bangboos, as silly as that sounds. But despite my insistence that they are, it is still just an idea, a rather convoluted one to be honest. Truth be told, we don't know why they survived. There could be a number of different reasons that have yet to be revealed, and most of this is just random guessing on my part. It's mostly just for fun, so don't take any of this as absolute truth. Whatever the case may be, there is clearly more to the Phaethon siblings than meets the eye. The Helios Institute likely holds a plethora of different secrets that we will only learn of once we venture back into Hollow Zero once more. Given Miyabi has now agreed to partner with Phaethon, it will only be a matter of time before we learn the truth behind what really happened. With that, I'll end the video here. What are your ideas of why they survive? Did I miss out a crucial detail, or do you just want to share your Miyabi pool results? Share all your thoughts and ideas in the comments. If you found the video entertaining, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.